Arizona Territory, 1879. The merciless sun beat down on the parched earth of Yavapai County, where the uneasy peace between settlers and native tribes remained as fragile as a spider's web in a dust storm. It was a land where most men measured success in acres and cattle, and where most believed that showing kindness was just another way to invite your own destruction. Among these hard men stood Ryder Kincaid, a lean, handsome young rancher of 25 whose green eyes held both determination and weariness beyond his years. His modest spread, barely 1,000 acres with a small herd of longhorns, sat at the edge of Apache territory. Unlike many of his neighbors, Ryder kept his face clean-shaven despite the frontier custom, a habit from his days back east before the war had taken his family and driven him westward. A man who extends his hand in these parts is likely to pull back a stump, Ryder muttered to himself as he surveyed the distant storm clouds gathering over the mountains. This belief had been etched into his mind 3 years prior, when renegade raiders had murdered his business partner after they'd offered shelter to strangers. Since then, Ryder had lived by a simple creed: survival in the West meant isolation. Attachment was weakness, trust was foolishness. What Ryder claimed to want was straightforward enough to build his ranch into something substantial, perhaps sell it for a profit in a few years, then move somewhere civilized where a man didn't need to sleep with one eye open and a Winchester within reach. But beneath that ambition lay something he couldn't admit even to himself, a yearning for connection that the vast, empty landscape around him only amplified. As twilight approached on that fateful evening in late summer, Ryder was returning from town with supplies when he heard it, the distinctive crack of gunfire echoing across the valley, followed by screams that didn't sound like any settler he knew. His instincts told him to ride on, to remember his creed of non-involvement. But something else, something he thought he'd buried alongside his former partner, made him turn his horse toward the commotion. In a shallow ravine about a mile from the main trail, Ryder discovered a scene that stopped his breath. 2 enormous Native American women, they had to stand close to 7 feet tall, were pinned behind a fallen tree, one clutching a bleeding shoulder. 3 rough-looking men, clearly deserters or outlaws by their mismatched clothing, were firing at them from behind scattered boulders. "Just shoot the red giants and be done with it," one of the attackers shouted. "That medicine man will pay double for a pair of freaks." The wounded woman raised a hunting bow with visible effort, but her injury made her arrow fly wide. Her identical sister was attempting to shield her while reaching for a knife at her belt. Something in Ryder snapped at the sight. Before he could reconsider, he had drawn his rifle and put a bullet into the dirt near the attackers. "That's enough," he called out, his voice carrying across the ravine. 3 men against 2 women seems poor odds to me." "Mind your business, cowboy," the apparent leader shouted back. "These ain't no ordinary squaws, they're Apache witches worth good money." "I'm making it my business," Ryder replied, chambering another round with an audible click. "And I count 3 rifles against my one, so I reckon I'd better not miss." What followed was a brief but intense exchange of gunfire. One attacker took a bullet in the shoulder from Ryder's steady aim, another caught a skillfully thrown knife from the uninjured Apache woman that lodged in his thigh. Cursing their luck, the 3 men retreated to their horses and galloped away, shouting threats of return. When the dust settled, Ryder approached the 2 women cautiously. Up close they were even more remarkable. Identical twins standing easily 7 feet tall, with proud features and elaborate tattoos on their forearms marking them as members of a tribe Ryder recognized as Apache. The wounded one's eyes held pain but no fear as she assessed him. "Why did the white rancher help us?" she asked in surprisingly good English. Ryder wondered the same thing himself. "Seemed the decent thing to do," he finally answered, dismounting. "Those men weren't acting decent." The uninjured sister spoke rapidly in Apache to her twin, then addressed Ryder. "I am Nakia, my sister is Kiona. We are of the Chiricahua people. Those men have hunted us for 2 days." "I'm Ryder Kincaid," he replied, examining Kiona's wound. "This needs tending. My place is about 3 miles from here." "We cannot travel to your home," Nakia stated flatly. "Our people will search for us soon." Your sister might bleed to death before they find you, Ryder countered. And those men might come back with friends. One night of shelter, then you can be on your way. After a brief consultation in their language, the sisters agreed. Getting them onto horses was a challenge given their unusual height, but they managed. As they rode toward his modest ranch house, Ryder kept scanning the horizon, wondering what madness had possessed him to intervene. He had just broken his own cardinal rule. He had gotten involved. That night, as Ryder cleaned and bandaged Kiona's wound by lamplight, he found himself increasingly fascinated by the sisters. They moved with a fluid grace that belied their tremendous size, and spoke with an intelligence that contradicted the savage stereotypes most settlers held. They explained they were the daughters of a medicine woman who had consumed a special root during pregnancy, resulting in their unusual stature. Our height makes us valued warriors, Nakia explained while her sister rested, but also targets for those who would display us like animals. Like those men today, Ryder asked. Nakia nodded. They work for a man who collects people who are different. He wanted to buy us from our tribe. When our chief refused, they decided to take us instead. As the night deepened, Ryder found himself sharing more than he had with anyone in years. Stories of his childhood in Pennsylvania, the war that had claimed his parents, his journey west with dreams that had gradually withered under the harsh realities of frontier life. You hide from your own people, Kiona observed, speaking for the first time in hours, as if behind a wall. Her insight struck uncomfortably close to truth. Walls keep a man safe out here, Ryder replied defensively. Walls also keep a man alone, she answered simply before drifting to sleep. Dawn brought clear skies and a decision from Ryder. Your people will be looking in the wrong direction. I should ride out and try to find them, let them know where you are. The sisters exchanged glances. Our father, Chief Nate, will be leading the search, Nakia said. He does not trust white men. Few people trust anyone out here, Ryder replied, but your sister needs rest before traveling. After preparing the sisters with food and water, Ryder rode out along the edge of traditional Apache hunting grounds. It was a foolhardy mission. Approaching an Apache search party could get him killed before he uttered a word. Yet he felt compelled to try, driven by something he couldn't name. Midday found him face to face with precisely the situation he'd feared. 6 Apache warriors on horseback surrounded him, each face painted for battle, each weapon aimed for killing. Their leader, distinguished by the elaborate feathers in his headdress, regarded Ryder with cold suspicion. I come in peace, Ryder said slowly, raising his empty hands. I found Nakia and Kiona. Kiona is wounded but safe at my ranch. The mention of the names created an instant reaction. The warriors conferred rapidly in their language, while the leader studied Ryder with newfound intensity. I am Chief Nate, the man finally said. You have my daughters. They're guests, not captives, Ryder clarified. 3 men were hunting them. I helped fight them off, but Kiona took an arrow in the shoulder. I've tended the wound, but she needs time to recover. After what seemed an eternity, Nate gave a curt nod. Take us to them. The ride back to the ranch was tense. Ryder could feel the warrior's eyes boring into his back, measuring him for treachery. He wondered, not for the first time that day, if his impulsive decision to help the sisters would be his last. At the ranch, the reunion between the chief and his daughters unfolded with unexpected emotion. The formidable Nate embraced each daughter gently, examining Kiona's bandaged wound with careful hands. The sisters spoke rapidly in their language, gesturing occasionally toward Ryder. As the sun began to set, Chief Nate approached Ryder where he stood at the corral fence, giving the family their privacy. My daughters say you fought bravely to save them, the chief said, that you tended Kiona's wounds and offered shelter when you could have passed by. Ryder shrugged uncomfortably. Anyone would have done the same. No, Nate said firmly. Few white men would risk themselves for Apache women. Fewer still would ride alone into our territory to find their father. The chief studied the modest ranch, the small but sturdy cabin, the lean-to barn, the corral holding barely 20 head of cattle. You live alone, Nate observed, no woman, no family. By choice, Ryder replied, though the words rang hollow even to his own ears. I will return tomorrow, the chief said unexpectedly. I must think on what has happened here. Before Ryder could respond, Nate had gathered his warriors, leaving only 2 to guard his daughters for the night. Their departure left Ryder bewildered, wondering what decision required such deliberation. That evening, as Nakia helped prepare a meal from Ryder's meager stores, she explained more about their position in the tribe. My sister and I are considered powerful medicine because of our unusual birth, she said. Many believe we were touched by spirits. And you, Ryder asked, what do you believe? Nakia smiled. I believe we are simply tall women who wish to live in peace, but our father must consider what is best for the tribe. The reservation life the white government offers would display us like curiosities. Yet war means certain death for our people. As they ate, Ryder found himself noticing things he hadn't before. The intelligence in Kiona's eyes as she listened, the gentle humor in Nakia's observations about his bachelor housekeeping, the way both sisters carried themselves with dignity despite their circumstances. For the first time in years, his isolated cabin felt like a home rather than merely shelter. Morning brought an unexpected visitor. As Ryder fed his horses, a young Apache woman rode into his yard. She couldn't have been more than 20, with long black hair and delicate features that contrasted sharply with the imposing stature of the twins. I am Cheyenne Hawk, she introduced herself in perfect English, dismounting gracefully. Chief Nate sent me to speak with you. Ryder nodded, curious. I'm listening. The chief wishes to know more about the rancher who saved his daughters, she explained. I was educated at the mission school. He asked me to learn your true character. Not much to learn, Ryder replied. What you see is what you get. Cheyenne's dark eyes, the color of midnight, assessed him thoughtfully. The chief does not make decisions lightly when it concerns his daughters. What I see is a man living alone on land that could support a much larger operation. I see a man who risked his life for strangers. These things tell a story, but not the whole story. Throughout the day, Cheyenne observed Ryder as he worked, occasionally asking questions that seemed random but clearly followed some purpose. She was 22, she mentioned, the daughter of a medicine woman who had died when she was young. The mission had taken her in, educated her in both worlds. You speak like you've read books, Ryder commented as they checked on Kiona's wound together. Many books, Cheyenne confirmed with a small smile. They were my escape when the mission became too confining. And now, are you trapped between 2 worlds? Ryder found himself genuinely interested in her answer. I belong to neither fully and both partially, she replied. My tribe values my knowledge of white ways but never forgets I was mission-raised. White society sees only my heritage, never my education. Her honesty stirred something in Ryder. I understand being caught between places, he admitted. 2 eastern for the frontier, 2 western now to go back. As sunset painted the distant mesas gold, Ryder found himself sharing the porch with Cheyenne while the sisters rested inside. Their conversation flowed more easily than any he could remember since coming west. Why do you really live alone, Ryder Kincaid? She asked directly. A man who would risk himself for strangers is not a man who fears connection. The question struck deeper than he expected. I had a partner once. We were building this place together. Raiders came, he tried to help a family in trouble, got himself killed for the effort. So you decided kindness was dangerous. I decided survival meant keeping to myself. Cheyenne studied him in the fading light. Yet when my cousins needed help, you chose differently. Before Ryder could respond, dust on the horizon announced Ryder's approaching. Chief Nate had returned, accompanied by tribal elders and warriors. Their procession rode into Ryder's yard with ceremonial formality that set his nerves on edge. The chief dismounted and approached Ryder. My daughters have healed well under your care, he stated. And Cheyenne has observed your character. Ryder nodded cautiously. They're welcome to stay until Kiona is fully recovered. That will not be necessary, Nate replied. I have come with a decision that concerns you directly, Ryder Kincaid. The chief gestured and his daughters joined him, standing tall beside their father. Cheyenne took her place slightly behind them, her expression unreadable. For generations, the Apache have faced diminishing lands and broken promises, Nate began. Our future requires new thinking. My daughters, blessed by the spirits with their stature, represent our strength, but they need protection from those who would exploit them. Ryder listened, increasingly confused about where this was leading. You showed courage and honor when you saved them, the chief continued. Such qualities are valued among our people. After consultation with our elders, I offer you a place within our tribe through marriage to Cheyenne, whose knowledge of both worlds will help bridge our peoples. The pronouncement landed like a thunderclap. Ryder stared at Nate, then at Cheyenne, whose composure slipped just enough to reveal her own surprise. This is unexpected, Ryder managed. I don't understand. It is simple, Nate explained. Your ranch borders our traditional lands. Through marriage, we extend protection to you, and you provide a buffer between our people and white settlers. My daughters will have a safe place to visit away from those who would harm them. Our peoples begin to find common ground. Ryder looked at Cheyenne, who met his gaze steadily despite the faint flush on her cheeks. Doesn't she have any say in this? I would not force my decision on her, Nate said with dignity. Cheyenne has agreed to consider the arrangement if you are honorable. She has found you to be so. I need time to think, Ryder said, his mind reeling. 3 days, Nate nodded. We will return for your answer. After the Apache delegation departed, taking the twins with them but leaving Cheyenne behind to further discussions, Ryder found himself alone with the young woman who was apparently being offered as his bride. Did you know about this? He asked once they were alone. Not until this morning, Cheyenne admitted. The chief called me to his lodge and explained his vision. He believes our peoples must find ways to coexist or both will perish. And you agreed. Just like that. Cheyenne's midnight eyes flashed. I agreed to nothing except to meet you properly. I told him I would not be traded like a horse, regardless of how noble his intentions. Then why are you still here? Because I wish to know if you were the kind of man I could consider such an arrangement with, she replied frankly. My position in the tribe is complicated. I am valued for my knowledge but not fully trusted. This would give me purpose. As a political sacrifice, Ryder said bitterly. As a bridge, she corrected. And you did not answer my question from earlier. Why did you help the twins when it contradicted everything you claimed to believe about survival? The question hung between them as night descended, bringing no easy answers. The next 3 days unfolded in a strange domestic tableau. Cheyenne proved herself capable around the ranch, helping with chores, discussing books they had both read, sharing stories of her childhood divided between tribe and mission. Ryder found himself increasingly drawn to her intelligence, her quiet strength, and the grace with which she navigated her complex position. On the second night, as they sat before the fire, Cheyenne spoke of her mother's death from smallpox, of the mission teachers who had both educated and attempted to erase her heritage, of her return to the tribe as a young woman caught between worlds. Sometimes I feel like a ghost, she confessed, present in both worlds but belonging to neither. I understand more than you might think, Ryder replied, sharing his own story more fully. The Eastern family destroyed by war, his journey west with dreams of reinvention, the partnership that had ended in blood and his retreat into isolation. So we are both wanderers, she observed softly. I suppose we are. By the third day, Ryder had reached a decision, though not the one anyone might have expected. When Chief Nate and his entourage returned, Ryder met them in his yard with Cheyenne at his side. I have considered your offer, he began formally. And I must decline, not because I find it without merit, but because such arrangements should grow from mutual feeling, not political necessity. Nate's face hardened, but Ryder continued before he could speak. However, I propose an alliance of a different kind. My land borders yours. I offer safe passage for your people across it and sanctuary for your daughters when needed. In return, I ask only for peaceful coexistence." The chief studied him carefully. "And Cheyenne? If Cheyenne wishes to return with you, she may. If she wishes to stay and help me understand your people better, she is welcome as my guest, not my obligation." All eyes turned to Cheyenne, who stood tall despite being the center of such attention. "I would like to stay," she said clearly. "As a free woman making her own choice, if feelings grow between us, they should do so naturally." For a long moment tension crackled in the air. Then, unexpectedly, Chief Nate smiled. "My daughter Kiona said the white rancher has an honest heart beneath his walls," he said. "I see she was right. Very well, let us build this alliance one day at a time." The agreement they reached that day marked the beginning of profound changes for Ryder's small ranch. With the twins' occasional help, he improved his water management, increasing his herd size. Apache scouts warned him of bandits in the area, while he provided information about army movements that allowed the tribe to avoid unnecessary conflicts. And Cheyenne stayed, first in the small storage room Ryder converted to a bedroom for her, later as a true partner in running the ranch. Their relationship evolved slowly, built on respect and growing affection rather than obligation or necessity. 6 months after the twins' rescue, as spring brought new life to the desert, Ryder found himself sitting beside Cheyenne on the porch, watching the sunset paint the landscape in fiery hues. "I received a letter from back east today," he told her. "My cousin's been managing what little was left of my family's estate. He's finally sold it, sent me the proceeds." "Will you go back?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. Ryder shook his head. "There's nothing for me there anymore, but it's enough to expand the ranch considerably, build a proper house." "Your dream of a profitable sale is closer then." "That was never really my dream," he admitted. "Just what I told myself to avoid hoping for more." Cheyenne's hand found his in the gathering dusk. "And what do you hope for now?" "A life that means something, a place that's more than shelter." He turned to face her. "Someone to share it with if she's willing." Her smile held all the warmth the desert night would soon lack. She might be, if asked properly. The following week, with Chief Nate's blessing and the twins standing as witnesses, their imposing height now a familiar and welcome sight at the ranch, Ryder and Cheyenne were married according to both Apache tradition and frontier custom. The local magistrate raised eyebrows but performed the ceremony legally, making theirs one of the first recognized marriages between settler and Apache in the territory. That night after the celebrations ended and they were finally alone, Cheyenne traced the line of Ryder's jaw with gentle fingers. "You once believed the only way to survive was to remain alone," she reminded him. "What changed?" "I realized survival isn't enough," he answered, drawing her close. "I was existing, not living. It took 2 giant twins and 1 very patient woman to show me the difference." Over the years that followed, their ranch became a place of unexpected harmony. The giant twins visited often, eventually bringing their own warrior husbands. Chief Nate, as he aged, found in Ryder a reliable intermediary with territorial officials. Children came, first a son with Ryder's green eyes and Cheyenne's midnight hair, then twin daughters who delighted their enormous aunties. On the 10th anniversary of the day Ryder had impulsively ridden toward gunfire instead of away from it, he and Cheyenne stood on the porch of their expanded ranch house, watching their children play with visiting Apache youngsters. "Do you ever regret it?" Cheyenne asked. "Helping the twins that day, opening yourself to all this complication?" Ryder laughed, the sound no longer rare. "Best foolish decision I ever made. Turns out my partner was right after all. A hand extended in these parts doesn't always come back a stump." "Sometimes," Cheyenne agreed, leaning against him, "it comes back holding another." As the desert sun sank toward the horizon, painting the land in gold and promise, Ryder Kincaid surveyed the life he'd never dared to hope for: a thriving ranch, a family bridging 2 worlds, and the love that had finally taught him the true meaning of survival on the frontier.